Hi, I am Matthew Guest. I am the head of local and regional business engagement at the University of Central Lancashire. My role focuses on trying to help explain what the opportunities are for research and knowledge exchange within the Lancashire North region of the UK to our academics, and then explaining the research and knowledge exchange offer that we have to the wider region. And that might involve things such as looking at funding calls for something like the Shared Prosperity Fund, through to being part of policy-related conversations that the County Council might carry out, or at trying to think about what are the opportunities that might come directly from some of our research outputs. My journey into the field of knowledge exchange hasn't necessarily been that traditional. Although that said, I have worked in and around higher education for all of my career to date. I started out in a student sabbatical officer position at a students' association, and that got me interested in the role of higher education and the role of charities, and took me to something called the Centre for Charity Effectiveness at City University in London, where I worked on marketing and events. And I suppose, thinking about it, that was a form of knowledge exchange role in practice, as that centre very much focused on working with not-for-profits and helping them improve their leadership. And it was sort of from that, I did a part-time MSc in voluntary sector management, and that kept my interest and involvement in the world of charities and higher education. And I switched not long after that to go into work in policy, and worked for an organisation called Guild HE, which is one of the representative bodies for higher education within the UK. And my policy remit involved looking at research and knowledge exchange and the role of universities in place. So I came into my current role very much from trying to understand and explain the role of knowledge exchange, and the role particularly that universities and smaller universities can play in that when talking to government. And what I do now, I suppose, is putting some of that work, particularly around levelling up, into practice. One of the projects that the University of Central Lancashire has done recently has been a research and knowledge exchange festival. And this has been the first time we've done this in quite this way, looking across the offer of research and across the offer of knowledge exchange we had. We ended up doing something like 60 events over the course of a week, getting around 2,000 engagements in different ways. And that was covering the full range of what a research and enterprise service does. So it was looking at some of the more CPD for academics, trying to explain what the REF is, what the KEF might be, through to then sort of a business engagement day with breakfasts in both our Preston campus and in our Burnley campus, and then an event on social prescribing, for example, up in our West Lakes campus. So it was this opportunity to really shout about research and knowledge exchange within a primarily a teaching focused institution as well. We've got a big research base and it's growing. And I think what our research and knowledge exchange festival has done is it's given that opportunity for members of the research and enterprise service leadership team and the teams within that to come together very much as a service and help celebrate the achievements of our academic community, which is what we're there to do. And I think it's given us ideas for what 2026 will look like. So stay tuned for that. One of the big challenges actually around knowledge exchange is the language that gets used. The very phrase knowledge exchange is something that those of us within the Praxis Oral community probably understand pretty well. But if you start talking to some of our external partners, whether they're in local authorities, as I tend to talk with, or working in the business world, as my colleagues here at UCLan do, that language isn't really what they talk about. They might talk about innovation, and they might talk about how do I just get some help to make this thing work. It's often what it can come down to. So I think there's a particular way that we talk, but a particular way that we talk even within the sector, where we start referring to HIFE or HEBC or KEF or the KE Concordat, which are all the mechanics that are really important for making sure that knowledge exchange works and functions. But it's certainly one of those challenges. I think the other big challenge is that because knowledge exchange is so diverse, particularly when talking with our partners or talking with policy partners in government, trying to help understand and explain that knowledge exchange, yes, includes commercialization and tech transfer, the traditional bits, and where people tend to see, rightly or wrongly, there is more money. It also then has a huge range of things. It covers skills, particularly in work that students might do as well in projects with external organisations, through to continual professional development, through to public engagement. And it's a really broad, diverse field. So when you say, what is knowledge exchange, it's so massive that that can be part of the challenges that are in there. I've been involved with Praxis Oral for a few years. My first part was when I worked for my old organisation, Guild HE. I worked very closely with Tamsin Mann at Praxis on the Knowledge Exchange Concordat and thinking through how that could help benefit and raise the profile of knowledge exchange within the sector. And I think that gave a very good understanding, again, looking more from the top sector perspective of different types of KE that might exist. Where I've worked with Praxis more recently has been involved in the selection of some of the sessions for the annual conference coming up in June in Blackpool. Really exciting that that's taking place in Lancashire this year. And I think that's one of the benefits that I see of being part of the Praxis membership, is being able to help direct the spotlight on parts of the UK where universities are active and show the types of KE work that take place that's not just focused in London and the South East. That's in there. I think the other aspect, of course, and it was partly through the Knowledge Exchange Concordat work, is then being able to talk to other institutions and getting some understanding of where their particular challenges are. And I know one thing that I'm quite interested in exploring and haven't had the chance to look into as much is where that regional growth specialist community might be. So I think we've got quite a lot of interesting trends shaping the world of knowledge exchange at the moment. I think the big one is actually the unknown one, which is around the upcoming general election within the UK perspective anyway. So that's going to have a really big influence on the landscape if we end up with either a Conservative or a Labour government. And I think there are probably different opportunities for knowledge exchange within each of those spaces. Under the sort of the current Conservative government, there's been a lot of interest really in science, innovation and technology, which we've seen through the formation of the science department. And the role that knowledge exchange takes within that has certainly had a bit more prominence. And you can sort of see the way that trend is where knowledge exchange is perhaps getting split down into different areas a little bit. So, for example, you see through UKRI and in turn Research England, greater focus on commercialisation activities within knowledge exchange. And that's not necessarily new. It's a trend easily charted back to Joe Johnson and the industrial strategy of 2016 under Theresa May and earlier. I think the other interesting trend that we have seen is particularly Research England trying to get to grips with what place means and its relation to knowledge exchange. We were really excited to be one of the institutions that benefited from the Regional Innovation Fund announced in October 2023, really aiming at how we work with local regional businesses on local growth opportunities. And it's given us the chance to do some really quite interesting things, ranging from working with a larger organisation in the region to creating a podcast studio to working with our not-for-profit sector. So there's, I think, the trend that we might see is there is greater focus on both commercialization and at the same time on regional innovation and how that works. And I think the other bit we'll see in there is at some point a discussion again with around how KE is funded and supported, whether the Higher Education Innovation Fund is the way that that's done or how that might get reformed, and where that comes into play with the knowledge exchange framework and the knowledge exchange concordat to help shape the KE system. So there's a certain, I think a certain trend there. When we're thinking a bit more globally as well, I think some of the global trends that are coming up, unsurprisingly, the role of AI, which is very much getting discussed at the moment, both its potentials and its challenges actually that get out there. Universities are going to have to think about what it means for their own processes, but also how can they be at the forefront of taking advantage of the AI revolution. So there's those couple of trends, I suppose, that I'd see are coming out. I think I'd definitely say having conversations with people who are already engaged in it and getting a bit of a feel for what the range is. So something like the Praxis Oil Jobs Board is a pretty good indication of the different types of roles. You might have more technical roles in there around IP and commercialization, or looking at knowledge transfer partnerships, through to then roles like my own, which are much more generalist, where you might need to know a little bit of everything to get out there. I think for thinking about how you might want to progress in the world of KE, having an understanding of what the academic community does is essential, what part of that research method is. It's one of the things that I'm doing at the moment is I've recently started a part-time PhD, as I was quite conscious that I work a lot with academics, but actually one of the motivations, and there are many for a PhD, but one in there is certainly thinking about and understanding that research process in a much closer way, because I know it will help me do my job much better. So that's one of the bits of advice that I'd say in there, and just generally making sure that you talk to people in roles that you think might be of interest. I think the other bit, thinking about the roles in KE, is also looking outside of the higher education sector. So, and if you are looking at universities and thinking of them as places to work from outside, but think, I don't understand all of this language, well, the chances are you're going to have a set of experience, skills, and attributes that universities will jump on. If you're coming from a commercial background, if you're coming from a network building background, if you're coming from a funding background, in particular, I think that's where there's going to be a big focus. And in fact, one of the trends that we could talk about is that KE professionals are going to increasingly be looked to as people to help get money into the HE sector.